Welcome to Workplace Psychology with Dr. Martha Grajdek. I'm Dr. Martha Grajdek. This podcast examines a wide variety of work-related issues through the lens of industrial and organizational psychology. And while many of the topics discussed here may be seen as intended for white-collar employees and their employers, in reality, the ideas presented here are applicable across organizations and industries. Additionally, many of the topics discussed here may be applicable outside of the workplace. I encourage you to examine what's presented here, apply what makes sense to you, and simply discard the rest. When it comes to high performers at the workplace, both stress levels and burnout rates can be high. And while organizations may struggle to find the right ways of preventing high levels of stress and burnout, some of the most obvious ways of preventing both can elude them. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about the idea of sabbaticals, extended recovery, and career sustainability beyond PTO. While some companies may attempt to maintain their people's productivity and keep them out of high stress levels or even burnout by offering perks and certain types of benefits, the bottom line is that high performers don't need another pizza party. What they need is restorative time with structure. Let's start by defining the term sabbatical, which is often used in academic circles, but it is not limited to only academia. A traditional definition of a sabbatical would include the idea of it being a paid leave of absence, one that is willingly granted by the organization, whether that's a university or a company of any kind. Sabbaticals and extended leaves of absence are usually reserved for tenured employees or employees who have been with an organization for multiple years. Traditionally, especially when it comes to academia, one may expect to be eligible for a 1-year sabbatical or up to a 1-year sabbatical for every 7 years worked. Well, that sounds generous to many. Industries and fields outside of academia may consider sabbaticals and extended leaves in shorter terms. Why are sabbaticals important? Sabbaticals are a form of extended recovery. They can be a tremendous benefit in terms of career sustainability. This can be especially important when we consider high achievers who have been with an organization for an extended period of time. Simple vacations or PTO may not be enough to keep the pace and productivity. Restorative time off, especially time that incorporates or includes intentional structure, can lead to a renewal in one's identity, creativity spikes, commitment to the organization, and recovery from chronic stress. Any organization that wants to keep its high achievers will consider sabbaticals as an option. And while we don't have to entertain an entire year off for a sabbatical, a leave of absence of at least 30 days is a reasonable exchange for what the company will get in return or get to keep in return. Obviously, sabbaticals must be something that is purposeful, intentional, and well organized. Every organization should define what a sabbatical will mean within the parameters of that company. A good starting point is eligibility. Who amongst the organization's employees will be eligible for extended leave with pay? while many in academia may enjoy a year-long sabbatical, 4 to 12 weeks may be more realistic for most employers. When designing a sabbatical program, it's important for the organization to focus not only on eligibility and length of sabbatical, but also on the pay that will be implemented during the individual's absence. That may be full or partial pay. Things such as coverage are also important considerations. Rather than hiring somebody temporarily or tasking one existing employee with taking over for the absent individual, it may make more sense to have a pool of people who can cover tasks and responsibilities of the person who is taking the sabbatical. Another important consideration is to have a re-entry plan. This is just as important for the employer as it is for the employee. And while it may be tempting to simply jump back into one's position full force as if nothing's ever changed, the reality is things may very well have changed on both sides. This is why an organized, planned re-entry is critical for one's success when returning from a sabbatical. As employers consider the idea of sabbaticals and general extended recovery for their long-term high achievers, equity considerations are key. While sabbaticals will clearly not be available to everybody, they should be available across different levels and roles within the organization. It is understandable that an organization may want to reserve this benefit for those employees who have been with a company for a defined minimum number of years and who are also considered to be high performers or high achievers within the organization. Transparent criteria are a must. Sabbaticals should not be a mystery or a focus of guessing, speculation, or gossip within the workplace. They should be well defined and understood by anyone within the organization. An organization will have to get creative in order to make sabbaticals a success for both employees and for the employer. They may be offered on a rotating basis or on a limited number of sabbaticals at any given time. All of those considerations will depend on the organization, their size, and their needs. While sabbaticals may seem like a benefit that is mostly focused on the employee, there is a big potential on the company's return on investment. Allowing your high achievers, especially the loyal employees who have been with the organization for an extended period of time, for a certain number of years, ensures the employees' health and well-being, their commitment to the organization, their overall engagement, and even post-sabbatical benefits, such as increased innovation and creativity. To the individual employee, a sabbatical may sound like nothing more than a fantastic perk, one that everybody would welcome. And while it is a period of restoration for the individual, it should be one that is intentional, purposeful, and organized. If the idea is to reduce stress or recover from burnout, it only makes sense that there is a definitive plan in place before one goes on sabbatical, so that when the time passes, the employee is getting out of that time off what they intended to get out of it. Beyond regeneration and restoration of one's health and well-being, sabbaticals should also focus on things such as learning and giving, contributing. As you can see, sabbaticals are not aimless, long stretches of time off from work, but rather organized and purposeful, intentional times away from the organization when the individual focuses on recovery and restoration, but also on growth and contribution. Something else to consider for both the employee and employer are well-defined boundaries while the individual is taking that sabbatical. This is something that should be an agreement between employee and employer. What kind of contact and communications are expected and allowed? This is important to define ahead of time. It's not much of a break from work or a sabbatical if an individual continuously checks their emails, answers phone calls, and performs tasks. A sabbatical is not simply working remotely, but rather not working and focusing on other things instead. Sabbaticals can involve other types of work, such as learning, creating, innovating, and contributing in other ways. That means that being eligible to have an extended period of time off and away from work does not require one to be burnt out or on the verge of being burnt out. This is important when the organization sets up rules and parameters of eligibility and purpose for sabbaticals. A good place to start is to set up a 6-week program. Focus on companies' established high achievers. Roll out the first program attempt with one individual and collect feedback and data afterwards. Improve on the program with the new findings and offer it to the next person who is eligible for sabbatical. This is how programs can get refined and improved within a relatively short period of time. Within 6 months to a year, an organization can have a well-defined, balanced sabbatical in place. But remember, nothing is written in stone. Changes and improvements should always be on the table. As this episode comes to an end, let's review what was discussed. The idea of sabbaticals, or long periods of time away from work, are most often thought of in the world of academia. However, they can very easily be implemented in any industry or field. Extended periods away from work are intended for things such as recovery, learning, growth, and contribution. These can be extremely beneficial for organizations when offering sabbaticals to high achievers who have been loyal to the company for a certain number of years. A well-defined sabbatical is the key to its success. This is just as important for the employer as it is for the individual employee. A purposeful and intentional break is likely to be the most successful break. Any organization can begin by designing and testing out a 6-week sabbatical program. Roll it out to one person at a time and collect feedback and data at the end. This is a great way to have a solid sabbatical program within 6 to 12 months. As this week unfolds, I encourage you to consider extended breaks and sabbaticals within your organization. Whether you are the employer or someone in leadership or management position or not, this can be an opportunity for a conversation about sabbaticals. Even if an organization doesn't currently have a sabbatical plan in place, any employee can present a well thought out, well organized case for a sabbatical. For those of you who experience this podcast in an audio-only version, I encourage you to check out my YouTube channel, Stress Free with Dr. G, where you can find the video version of the podcast. Once there, check out some of the other videos. They focus on stress management. Stress Free with Dr. G is available on YouTube, and the link for that is in the description below. Thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe to this podcast. I look forward to seeing you here again next time. Until then, I wish you joy and well-being.